Montreal and Barcelona were a big crash back down to earth for Williams, but what's actually causing their sudden dip in form, and can it be resolved? Kia ora, my name's Kimmy and I talk about Formula One in the world's second worst accent. This year, Williams has come out of the gate swinging. Alex Albon's been putting in regular and surprisingly high points finishes. Carlos Sainz has been steadily improving to the point where he's mostly only been hampered by things outside of his control, and the team sitting a solid 5th in the Constructors' Championship, 27 points clear of 6th place Haas. They've had a good car, one of the best teammate pairings on the grid, and up until recently have seemed to be gaining momentum rather than losing it. But what the last couple of weekends have highlighted is how much their car is susceptible to overheating. Now, this kind of all started in Miami, but it's not until now that it's really started stymieing their ability to bang out some really good results, at least with one car. Basically, Williams' problem is that they're still operating with technology that's well behind the times. Most of the learning that Williams is doing when they implement updates is happening on the track during free practice rather than on a computer where it should be. And I'm not saying free practice isn't important, but you still have to have a baseline measurement to understand what you're actually looking for. And no, computers aren't infallible. We've seen plenty of teams who've had correlation issues. Pretty much everyone has complained about it at some point this season, but Williams' reality is much more challenging. In the words of James Vowles himself, they're using human beings to try to estimate where they should be rather than real tools. So while they've made some correct choices in the lead up to the season and in the early part of the season, Williams is now at that point where human ability to estimate performance is reaching its ceiling. In Canada, there were two different cooling issues: the power unit, that only affected Alex Albon's car and was the cause of his retirement, and the brakes, which meant Carlos Sainz spent most of the race lifting and coasting and was unable to attack. This appears to have stemmed from Williams blocking off a lot of their cooling vents in an attempt to get better aero performance, which is fine in theory, but if you don't have the computer modelling to find the right balance, it can cause some pretty catastrophic consequences, like burning through a power unit before you really want to. So, what's the solution? Are they completely screwed for the rest of the season, and are they destined to be at the back of the field by the time Abu Dhabi rolls around? Let's not get too drastic here, okay? The key thing about Williams is that they understand what their limitations are. They're acutely aware of what their limitations are. This is a team that's been struggling with antiquated infrastructure for years at this point, decades even. And by understanding where they're behind other teams, Williams' best chance at retaining their position in the Constructors' Championship is to leverage any small advantage that they can. For instance, they know that their car doesn't follow well because it's susceptible to overheating, particularly in hot, dirty air. This means they're going to have to think out of the box and maybe start executing some wacky strategies. Find that clear air, maximize the opportunity on the longer circuits like Spa, Baku and Silverstone to find some big gaps where they can make solid gains, particularly if they know getting stuck in a DRS train is going to leave them out of the points unless there's a red flag or a very well-timed safety car. Then there's leveraging the individual driver's talents. Sainz has done some pretty damn impressive tyre stints this year. Maybe it's time to start considering putting him on used softs for a race start where the strategy could go either way of a 1 or 2 stop, and then pitting him super early. This would not only give him a lot of space on track to make up time, but also reduce tyre wear, making it more likely he's able to make it through a long way into the race before they need to pit him again, which again gives them more wiggle room to find a gap. Sure, it's not going to make for a fun race for Carlos Sainz, probably some pretty lonely ones, but if your option is finishing out of the points or getting a solid result but having a lonely race, I'm sure he'd err on the side of the good result. Albon has shown extremely good race pace and gained positions a number of times this season. Maybe they need to sacrifice quali setup more frequently for that overtake potential on tracks where they know it's possible. Maybe they need to be prepared to sacrifice entire weekends if they know their chance for points is in the low single digits or off the cards entirely. If it means they might get more learnings for a circuit later in the year, it's probably worth it. Because as we saw last year with Alpine, all it takes is for one exceptional race with one exceptional result to earn you a whole bunch of extra prize money. So what does Williams need to do internally to bring everything together and take advantage of those opportunities? Well, Vowles has already talked about this, and it's exactly what any business needs to do when they've had a rough patch. Give people the confidence and the comfort to own up to their mistakes and shortcomings and dig into the details of how they can do better. And don't get butthurt if someone tells you you fucked up. Because barring some very, very smart, lucky like big brain thinking from the design department, they're probably not going to be able to find a magic bullet that fixes everything. The cost cap is something that's going to limit their ability to try out new parts. So even though Williams isn't as broke as a 19-year-old uni student anymore, they still can't go throwing millions of dollars at developing multiple components to test at every race weekend. They have to think smart. They have to figure out why they might have chosen a safe strategic choice rather than a risky one, and whether or not 1 or 2 points was worth it. They need to play into their individual drivers' strengths and work out how they can maximize them without compromising the team as a whole. And they need to sort out their slow pit stops, because if they're gonna be hunting for that space on track, that extra second could be the difference between finding it and being stuck behind an Isaac Hadjar. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much to my patrons who are up here on the screen. If you'd like to support my channel, there's a few ways that you can do that. You can click the like button, tell YouTube that it should recommend my video to others. You can subscribe, which also tells YouTube I don't suck, and you can share my stuff with your F1 friends. That would be awesome. If you're the kind of person who does like to support YouTubers on Patreon, then the link is down in the description and also right here on screen. Ka kite, hope to see you here again.